How often does this happen? You know, the landscape of Napa has changed greatly over the last 30 years. In case you hadn't gotten the memo, right? Fewer family estates. If there are family estates, the family's independently wealthy and charges, you know, $500 a bottle and has helipads and shit. Excuse my French. Or it's larger concerns that pretend to have wineries that are family estates when in fact they're part of a larger concern as a sub-concern of a sub-concern. And those guys kind of do the same thing, but they do it under the corporate mantra as opposed to just really rich person making wine mantra. Point is, there aren't that many properties in Napa that are simply old school properties bought by some cat to make good wine at reasonable prices. Think about it, real hard. How many? I'll wait. No, I'm not going to wait. That would take forever because you'd be like thinking all these, like, how about that one? No, that one, no, that one, no, not that one, not that one. Basically, just a small handful of these properties left in the Napa Valley, these classic old school places. And Bill Harrison's place is, oh, should I say was, we'll get that in a second, was one of those places. Mm-hmm. So Bill Harrison, his uncle was Antonio Pirelli Minetti, who's a guy that didn't get a lot of run as one of the pioneers of the wine business in California. You know, Chelichev and Augustin Harazi and Junipero Serra and all these other people with difficult names got the run first. But Antonio Pirelli Minetti is actually one of the first cats to actually start a winery and have his own wine making degree, of all things, right? Kind of crazy. And from there, Bill Harrison learned kind of from him, you know, the craft of winemaking, how it works, the ins and outs, etc. And, and basically had his own career. He did a bunch of different stuff. And then he got into the bulk wine business. I think he got into bulk wine and, you know, got into the more kind of like larger concern side of the wine business for a period of time. And then finally, in the early 90s, bought this parcel, this gorgeous parcel. You know, this is one of the wineries, on Silverado Trail, which I guess there's like a cool name for the Silverado Trail now that I don't even know. Like the locals call it something else. And I got corrected yesterday by a younger person who's like, Silverado Trail, no one calls that before. And they, what do they call it? Like ST or the Trail or so, like it's got some other kind of cool name. Anyway, in the old days, you would go down the Silverado Trail, and as you headed kind of through Rutherford, there was a series of smaller wineries like Rutherford and the St. Helena and the Calistoga, like that felt like old Napa. You know, you had the Pirelli Minetti thing out there. You had Harrison's place. You had the guys that made the port, like Prager Port Works was up there, etc. And it was just this really nice, kind of wonderful, kind of old school, untouched part of the valley for a number of years. And the wines that Bill Harrison made always reflected that. And he's had some good winemakers through there. Gary Galleron was making wine for him for a while. Gary Galleron, I remember him from Grace Family, as well as Whitehall Lane, and of course his own Galleron label, very famous winemaker up there for a number of years. And then more recently, he has a cat that worked at Amici making the wines, and Amici, that's a big time label, etc. But the point is, these wines were always of a style that was classic Napa. They didn't get over their skis. They never charge a ton of money. It was always reasonable. You could always go in and do a tasting, have the experience from these beautiful vineyards on the east side of Rutherford. So I guess we're over by, what was it, north of Quintessa, something? Good Dirt. I'll get back to the Good Dirt part at the end there. So the family always made reasonable wines, and it was really great that they picked up some distribution again, and we got started with them again. What a joy. This is the 2021 William Harrison Simpatico Napa Valley red wine. Rutherford, Napa Valley. Okay, all estate. The winery literally makes like 2 red wines. There's like a reserve cab, and then they make, and then whatever doesn't go into the reserve cab goes into Simpatico. You know, like simple, huh? And you're not reinventing the wheel, and you're not trying to out Napa. This is just wine for the sake of wine in wine country. And how far has Napa gotten away from that over the last 30 years? Seriously, this is what it was. You know, without sounding like an old head. I got the gray hair, been around. But you know, even into the late 90s, you went to Napa and had these experiences all the time. And the last 20 years, it's just morphed into this weird, creepy Stepford super high-end playground. Wow, I said that, yeah. That's how I feel. It's real. Anyway. Getting back to the wine, 56% Cabernet Sauvignon, with the rest being Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Malbec, Merlot. And the soul of this wine is what creates the level of interest. 2021 is a great vintage. Rutherford, great dirt, great property. Ergo, you should make a really compelling wine. And they did. This wine bowled us over. Went to this trade tasting with a smaller distributor here in the area. And it was like, hey, William Harrison, we know that label. And we sat down, we tried the wines, and we tried this wine, and we were like, whoa. And we went to the reserve cab, and we're like, wow, that's really good. And it was like, can we go back and try the Simpatico, the other one? And we're like, yes. And it's like, man, this wine just blew us away. It really, really lit us up. I love the spice character in this wine. You got that cinnamon stick thing, perfectly ripe Cabernet Sauvignon. What dominates is the sunshine in the Napa Valley. The Cabernet Sauvignon dominates, but all these other nuances come in to make this wine like just so complete that even now, yeah. It's just good, huh? This is just good Napa Valley. You know, on their website, they still say a classic Meritage blend, which, you know, the whole Meritage thing went out in the 90s and the early 2000s. The whole Meritage concept went out the window. But now those Meritage wines are now called Napa Valley proprietary red wines, and they sell for a lot of money. But it's the same thing, a Cabernet-based red that creates a whole wonderful concept wine. And that's what this is. Simpatico is just this gorgeous Meritage wine with all the stuff that simply doesn't make the cut for the Reserve Cabernet. And we tried the Reserve Cabernet. It's really good. It is better than this, but is it? Well, we'll get to the price. The point is, this was the deal. This was the star of the show. Now, we were like, because we got offered a really great price in this wine, and we're like, wow, that's a smoking hot price. What's going on there? That was pretty amazing. Well, what we didn't know was William Harrison, the winery, was for sale at that time, or maybe had consummated a sale. And usually when there's a sale, what happens is a lot of the goods go out at a really, really hot price to make way for new goods or to clear the decks or for people that previously owned the winery just to capitalize on their existing inventories and pocket the money, etc. So Amazetta bought the property, the Amazetta gang. They're another smaller concern, but maybe a little bigger, a little more money behind them. And they bought the property. They'll do great things with it. In the meantime, this wine, which, you know, we didn't even see on their website, I think this was like a wine club only type thing they did, just to their D2C direct club. We didn't really see we found like 2 retails on it with extensive digging of around $50 a bottle. All right, so $50 a bottle retail, which already at that price, right? You're already going like, dude, $50 for a single vineyard estate proprietary red wine from the Napa Valley in a great vintage. That's not some kind of, you know, one-off or some kind of like contrived label or whatever, because you see those too. No, this is legit single vineyard estate bottled proprietary red wine in a great year. So at $50, you're already like, yeah, I'm in. We were already in. And then we got the pricing, we got to talking about it, and I was like, how about you guys sell for $30? And it was like, yes, please, and more, right? This is a wine that if we had our druthers, you know, it could have been an architect bottling for us. This is that quality level. This is that great a deal. This is that nuanced a wine that for us, it was very easy to just grab all we could. So right now we're in the process of grabbing all we could. You should grab all you could too. This is one of the more compelling Napa Valley red wines we've encountered in the last year at this price. And fact of the matter is, with the sale, you know what's going to happen. This is going to go bye-bye. Simpatico, you know, kind of semi-dorky name and all, is going to go bye-bye. When in fact, yeah, here we have just another, the last crumbling vestiges of the old Napa, and what a shame. But in the meantime, you do get to have that old Napa experience at a remarkable price. $29.98 on the shelf for the 2021 William Harrison Simpatico. You had a great run, Bill, and we'll see what the future holds for this fantastic property. In the meantime, score this. Quite the deal. Click and buy below.